I understand what a close friend and ally Israel is and always has been. I get it. But I feel like sometimes we act in Israel's best interests rather than in our own best interests. I think this is one of those cases.
So Tucker Carlson just interviewed John Kiriakou, the CIA whistleblower who went to prison for exposing torture, and he's dropping bombshells about how Israel manipulates U.S. foreign policy. We're talking CIA-level intelligence about Iranian nuclear capabilities, heroin trafficking in Afghanistan, and how America puts Israeli interests first. Let's break this down.
I think that that's not what took place in this case. As you know, you've heard the same criticisms that I've heard in the Gulf. The complaints are that they were not consulted as allies. They were just sort of brought along. And I was in Europe a couple of weeks ago and a couple of weeks before that, and I heard the same complaints that they weren't consulted. The only apparent consultation that was taking place was with the Israelis. And the Israelis really, really wanted this to get done.
This is massive. Every single CIA assessment for decades has said Iran doesn't have nuclear weapons capability. Yet Netanyahu has been pushing for U.S. military action since the 1990s. When your own intelligence agencies unanimously contradict the justification for war, that should be a red flag the size of Texas.
I was in Ireland 2 weeks ago, and at the hotel, they told me I was probably going to have to leave extra early for the airport because they were expecting the largest demonstration in Irish history, which took place the next morning. And it was all because of home heating oil prices and gasoline prices. We didn't consult with the Irish or the British or anybody else before launching this thing. They were already having problems because of the cutoff of home heating oil coming from Russia because of the Ukraine war. And then this was just doubly difficult for them. And so we figured it out. Gas was $12.50 a gallon. I mean, if you don't have an
gasoline,
$12.50 a gallon, and home heating oil was astronomical to the point where people were just, freezing, and they're blaming us for it. So you want to be able to consult our friends and allies so that they have a chance to come up with a plan to make the hurt on their own people a little bit less severe.
National intelligence estimates are the gold standard of U.S. intelligence. They represent the consensus of all 17 intelligence agencies. When the CIA says twice that Iran has no weapons program, plus you have a religious fatwa forbidding it, the case for military action completely collapses.
I fully understand how this was in Israel's interest, and the Israelis have long wanted us to attack Iran and to overthrow the regime in Tehran. I get that. It's in their interests. But I've never believed, I don't think any CIA officer, past or present, believes or has believed that the Iranians were anywhere near a nuclear weapon. They don't have a delivery system that could deliver a nuclear weapon to the United States. And, when you've got two national intelligence estimates, a national intelligence estimate is a sense of the entire intelligence community, all 18 organizations within the U.S. intelligence community, unanimously concluding that there is no Iranian nuclear weapons program twice, as well as the late...
There's no program.
No program. No. Ayatollah Khamenei issued a fatwa in 2003 declaring it a sin to develop a nuclear weapon. And then the CIA twice said they don't have a nuclear weapons program.
This is exactly backwards from how foreign policy should work. Compare this to Bush Sr. building a 35-nation coalition for Gulf War I. Proper consultation takes months, involves detailed intelligence sharing, and gives allies time to prepare. Consulting only Israel while ignoring NATO partners is diplomatic malpractice.
Out into the fields, and sure enough, we stumble on a poppy farmer. And I asked him a very naive question. I said, instead of poppy, why don't you grow things that have two growing seasons, like tomatoes or onions or pomegranates? Right. And he goes like this. Oh, the Americans told me in 2001 that if I told them where the Arabs were, I could grow all the poppy I wanted. I said, what Americans told you could grow poppy? And just as I said the question, my military handler pulls me by the arm and he says, we're under threat. We have to go back to the base. I never got an answer. We got back into the Jeep and they took me back to the helicopter I flew back to Bagram. So, actually, like out of a movie. So I come back to Washington, and I said to the chief investigator, I said, I'm onto something here. This is not good. So I wrote it all up just as I collected it. Well, I had a friend at DEA, the Drug Enforcement Administration, and I called him. I said, listen, I'm going to send you a paper, eyes only. I just want your thoughts on it before I send it to John Kerry. So he calls me back a couple days later and he says, buddy, you know you're not going to get this paper published, right? I said, why not? He said, Afghanistan produces 93% of the world's heroin. Almost all of that heroin goes to Iran and Russia, and we want them to be addicted to heroin. It weakens their societies. And I never got it published.
$12.50 a gallon for gas in Ireland because we prioritize Israeli objectives over our closest allies. This is the human cost of America First rhetoric while practicing Israel First policy. When European populations suffer because we didn't consult them, we're burning centuries of goodwill.
That's really the $64,000 question. You recall in the first term when President Trump met with Vladimir Putin, he did not take his intelligence people into the meeting with him. Putin took his intelligence people into the meeting with him because the president said he trusted the other side's intelligence people more than he trusted his own. And I get it. I get that he believes that he was under direct threat from, the deep state and the John Brennans of the world. I understand that. But I'm surprised that feeling, that belief has held over all this way into the second term, where you would believe the Israeli information before you would believe your own people's information, especially when you know that the Israelis have a vested interest in you doing their dirty work for them.
This revelation is staggering. A CIA officer discovers that the US military explicitly told Afghan farmers they could grow unlimited heroin poppies in exchange for intelligence. Then his Senate investigation gets killed because the heroin was intentionally being used as a weapon against Iran and Russia.
That's it. Because the CIA analysis has been consistent over the course of decades. We can't just fire a couple of rockets and take down a government in a country of 93 million people. That's just not the way real life works. They're going to rally around their leadership because we're outsiders.
And just, you make the point about history, but I mean, I think Saudi is probably in competition, but I mean, of all the countries in that part of the world, Iran is the most durable. I mean, it's a real country.
Classic blowback. We weaponized heroin against Iran and Russia. Now China and Mexico are using fentanyl against us. The Taliban eliminated 93% of world heroin production in 2000, proving it's controllable. We chose to let it continue for geopolitical reasons, and now we're reaping what we sowed.
We have forced the Iranians into the embrace of the Chinese and the Russians and the Indians. And we're going to get to the point where we're just not going to be able to stand up against that kind of an alliance and make meaningful gains. Just think about this. Iran is a BRICS country, right? Brazil, Russia, India, China, plus, South Africa and Argentina and Iran and a couple of others, South Korea. Eventually, using the European Union as their model, they're going to come up with a unified currency. It's probably 20 or 30 years down the road, but it's going to happen one of these days. That will be the end of American hegemony in the region, because as things stand now, all oil transactions in the world, almost all, are done in dollars, right? The famous petrodollar. Well, a year ago, Kuwait sold a shipment of oil to China for yuan. And the Indians, a week ago, paid for a shipment of oil in yuan. So we're already seeing the cracks in the dam. And then just blasting the place is only going to make this inevitability come sooner.
Here's the trap. The same intelligence agencies that tried to sabotage the first term with Russiagate created such distrust that Israeli intelligence fills the vacuum. Netanyahu exploits this perfectly. He knows the president doesn't trust his own people, so Israeli intelligence becomes gospel truth.
I have he's not really a friend so much. He's a friendly acquaintance who spent 30 plus years at MI6, the British Foreign Intelligence Service. I spoke with him recently, and he said, you Americans, you're a mystery to us now. We thought we knew you until 9/11, and then you went out and just started killing everybody. And we thought, well, the Americans were traumatized. This is going to run its course. And then it seemed to run its course. And then you invade Iran and you don't consult with us. You don't ask for our help. And then you blame us when things start turning against you. Like, why aren't the British helping us? Well, you haven't asked for any help. And you didn't tell us what you were going to do in advance. And he said, what are we supposed to think? The only conclusion that we can draw is that you're not really the great friends that we thought you were.
Iran has 85 million people, a 2,500-year civilization, and sophisticated military capabilities. The idea that a few airstrikes could topple Tehran shows dangerous ignorance of history. When you attack a nation, populations rally around their government. It's international relations 101.
Far more support among MAGA Republicans. On the surface of things, it's because the Obama administration went after me. But it's more than that under the surface, deeper down. I think that MAGA Republicans really do believe in the rule of law and in the Constitution. And really, at the end of the day, this comes down to the Constitution. When I put my hand in the air on my very first day at the CIA and I promised to protect and defend the Constitution against all enemies, domestic and foreign, I meant it. And I hate to think that I was the only person in the room that day that did.
Yeah.
And I think for the most part, it's Republicans who respect that. So I've spoken with very high level, well-placed people close to the president, both in and out of government. I know that the president knows that I've applied for the pardon. I will admit to you that I disagree with the president's policy on Iran, but I don't think that's a big deal. I mean, people disagree. To me, that's a normal part of life. Maybe you and I don't agree on everything. We're still friends. And so I'm hoping that he does the right thing.
AIPAC should absolutely be registered under FARA as a foreign agent. They openly lobby for Israeli government positions. JFK tried to force this registration before Dallas. The fact that they operate as a domestic organization while advancing foreign policy objectives is a legal anomaly.